right. I saw the movie.
Okay.
Incredible.
Good.
Listen, it's bloody. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
It really is.
So what makes, because in comparison to the other two,
Yep.
it's extremely way more violent.
Yeah.
And everything.
Yeah.
What exactly got you into that space of wanting to do it even,
More gruesome?
Yes.
I mean, as you do sequels generally, it's like the Fast and Furious franchise. You're like, oh, and now we're in space. It's like, you're just building upon it, and hopefully people come with it. I know that Rick and the storyboard guys, there's an element of like them trying to outdo each other from the last time. And I remember like the first movie, I remember writing some really gruesome scenes, but I was not prepared for when he showed me the animation. I was like, oh, what are we doing? Like, this is insane. But we've always looked at it as like, these are like almost like midnight movies, like grindhouse movies that you would just go to a theater and watch, and it would be really fun to watch with the crowd because it's so gruesome and so over the top. It's just a moment of like, and that's what the game is, right? When you do a fatality or something, you're just like, that was a little much. Like and I often wonder about those people in NetherRealm. I'm like, I don't know, guys. Like, what are you doing? Like, what does your internet browser history look like? Because these are really brutal. Great. Oh, good.
I wanted to ask you, you work with story units like DC and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How would you approach Mortal Kombat that side of that world?
This is a weird thing. I've said this before, but like all the things I was bullied mercilessly for is like popular now. So it's a really weird thing back in the day to love all this stuff and no one else really loved this stuff. Or at least they loved it, but it kept it quiet. And so now I approach it because it's all background noise in my subconscious. That was the cool thing about Mortal Kombat. I remember playing the first arcade game at a Pizza Hut. It was like a Peter Piper pizza is what it was. And I remember thinking like, I don't think we should be allowed to play this, And I was like, that guy looks like Van Damme. Wait, there's like a ninja. Oh no, there's a cyborg. And I was like, it's all the things. Like, that was the thing. It was all the things that you loved, and it was all just kind of like shook together in this thing. So to be able to play in it is just, it's kind of easy because I'm like, this is all the stuff. You can go anywhere with it. This particular story, though, we try to restrain ourselves from just getting too big with the mythology because there's so much mythology in Mortal Kombat, and there's so much that's already been done inside the games and the people that have written the games. So we wanted to make this more focused on a couple characters in that story, in that arc, but also give it enough of a twist that it's like, it could be part of the continuity of Mortal Kombat. So it wasn't hard. I take all that stuff. That's all I do. And in fact, it's probably the opposite way. When I was in Supernatural, I'd be like, let's do this thing with like ninjas, and they're like, no. And I'm like, but it would be cool. I literally had one. It was like, vampire ninjas from future time traveling vampire ninjas, and I had it in like giant letters, and they would come by and they're like, so Jeremy, no, and I'm like, it'd be great, like, and they're just like, you're an idiot. I'm like, I know, but still, it'd be great.
I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
Who's your go-to character?
My go-to character, when I used to play, it was Raiden, just because I knew how, it was just like Ryu when you had to do like the lightning blast, and I was like, I can do that, and I remember my buddy was really good at Scorpion's, kunai, and I was like, this sucks, and he would do it, and then he would like jump back and hit me, and I'm like, I'm not as coordinated as I wish I was when it comes to those things. So it was Raiden. Raiden was my guy. I wish I could do Johnny Cage too, because, like I said, he was like analogous to Van Damme, and I was like, Van Damme!
Excuse me, Jeremy.
Yeah.
How do you feel? How will this movie appeal to people who have never experienced anything with Mortal Kombat before, or lapsed fans who have not enjoyed anything Mortal Kombat in, say, 15, 20 years?
Well, I know that, like, my wife, who usually stays away from these sorts of things, she watched it, and it's just an accessible movie. It's like walking into a Mad Max movie and not seeing the previous Mad Max. You get it. It's more about the story of it's a story about what the people are going through, and it's not necessarily reliant on if you played the game or if you have the continuity. It's like you get that this guy has a past, and that's the mystery that's uncovered. You get that this other guy, Kenshi, is kind of egocentric and needs to be humbled, and he's humbled in a traumatic way, and then like how do you recover from that and become a hero? Those are like
I've seen the trailer so far, and as I told Rick, a seeing eye sword. Where do I sign up for that?
Yeah, seriously, no, those
That's what really. I can't wait to see this movie because that's what drew me to it.
Yeah, no, that was, and that's all part of the character. I mean, that's the character they created at NetherRealm, and it's such a cool addition. And the design, obviously, because you're wearing it over there, like the design of Kenshi was so compelling. It was like the blind swordsman is just like is an old trope in movies, television, and books. And and my favorite was like Blind Fury with Rutger Hauer. If you ever see it, you know. So I was like, Rick, you gotta watch Blind Fury. You're gonna go. So that's a trope that I love, and the design of it was so cool. And we talked about what characters we use, especially if we're going to pull away from, Johnny Cage and Liu Kang and stuff like that. So that seemed like a natural thing to do.
I gotta ask, Jeremy, when do you find time to write you up?
So there's this drink called Red Bull, and I'm trying to get them to sponsor me. I tend to. That's one of my strengths, and I remember somebody telling me a long time ago, maybe my grammar isn't the best sometimes, and there's like misspellings, but they were like, don't worry about your weaknesses, double down on your strengths. And my strength is I can write really, really fast. And so it's ironic that I'm writing a Flash comic book, because I am an incredibly fast writer. Oh, thank you, man. But so the Mortal Kombat is, I write, I have 2 kids, I dig out time. And what I found when I first started writing is you just have to make a little bit of time. But cumulative effect is a real thing. So even if you write 1 page a day or 2 pages a day, 2 months you're going to have a script easy. And I just knew that instinctually. I would always say, there's a great book by Stephen King called On Writing. It's a fantastic book to get you really pumped up about writing. But Stephen King's like, 8 hours a day. And I'm like, I can't do that. And I was like, I pulled it back and I was like, what is the smallest amount of time I could write? This is when I was trying to start writing. And I was like, I can sit down for an hour. Just an hour. I was like, I'll make an hour. I'll do it. And I was like, because I have to do it. And next thing I know, I was making a script. I was writing a script a month. Easy. And then it was like, and then it became realizing that the blank page is the enemy, and I just write as fast as I can because I'd rather edit. Because writing is hard, and like the blank page is intimidating, so I won't even think about if it's good or not. I'll just start writing, and I know I can edit, and edit's fun and whatever. It's about getting to the end. I know better.
What the hell was I trying to say?
Absolutely, and I know better writers than I am, but they never finish. They'll like polish 3 pages, and you're like, that's a good 3 pages, but it's just 3 pages. You're not finished until you put the end, and you have to finish, and that's the end of it. I know tons of people that want to be writers. I'm like, you just got to finish. You got to complete something. So.
Well, there's a part in writing this and putting it together as you were going through the process to where it was going dark and violent, and you like shocked and surprised yourself. Like, is there a sequence in the film where you're like, oh shit?
Not so much. I mean, the funny thing is, as writing it, and at this point in 3 movies in, it's like, I know that what's going to shock and surprise me are what the storyboard guys do, and I've left room for that. I will tell you that there's a moment with Kenshi being held up and Aaron Black shooting at him. And I remember even I was thinking like, a little much. But now it's terrible. Like this franchise has ruined me because I'll be writing something else and they're like, this is PG, and I'm like, okay, I'll try to write that. I don't know how to write that anymore. Like I'm like stabbing things. They're like, remember, this is PG. I'm like, I'll leave that up to the animators to pull back on because now I don't know if I can write that. So.
I have a question. I'm a big Star Wars fan.
Oh yeah, I see.
And I couldn't help but seeing some similarities in some of the,
sure.
Between the 2 worlds. Was that intentional, maybe?
I don't know if it's intentional, but like the universal themes, even in Star Wars, it's like I'm a man of a certain age that grew up with it in a way that's ingrained into my DNA. Yeah. So and those are just echoes of other things, Kurosawa films and whatever. So I mean, there always is, and that probably is the most mainstream version.